How's it going, everybody? Looks like there's a couple people already here. That's cool. Yeah, I got a few topics I want to cover tonight and taking questions. So anybody that's here, I don't know, say hi, whatever. Over. I realize I've been pointing to this side over here, but it really is this side where you chat on the replays and stuff. So whatever. You know where it's at. If you want to say something, it's one of these sides over here. Anyhow, let's wait for people to get here before we get into the meat and potatoes of tonight. So had a fun little surf out front this morning. It was maybe, I don't know, waist high, but it's starting to feel like fall around here where it's offshore every morning and just you wake up, there's these beautiful offshore, warm offshore winds. So I'm out there almost every morning when it's like that. I don't care if it's knee high. I'm out there just to get in the water and start the day off right. So rode my tombstone this morning, number 26. It's still going strong in the small stuff. I love that board. Like I said, if anybody's got any, got one person here. I don't know who's here, but like I said, fire off questions if you want. It was just beautiful days here. I love fall. Fall around my parts is just amazing. It's when the offshore winds really start kicking in, and then just these warm offshore winds that just blow over the hills here. That just you get offshore spray, and it's when the first few big swells start showing up from the northwest, and we get a lot of fun waves here in the fall. It really is the time of year to be on the Central Coast. I'm sure a lot of places, even in California, just light up in the fall. So Morro Bay is no different. It's awesome here. Really encourage some people to get up here and check it out. It's definitely cold water. Bring a wetsuit and don't bring a 3.2. It's not enough. I wear a hooded 5.4 all year around here. So more rubber the better. I never want to be cold in the water. That's why I always wear a super thick wetsuit. Now I'm a little skinny on the skinny side too. I don't got a lot of meat on my bones, so a little extra rubber helps me. Yeah, so I got a few things I want to talk about tonight on my list. It's really cool today. I don't know if anybody saw on the Instagram, but I got vinyl transfer stickers that Instamaui Matt Morris, Boog photographer, man. If you guys aren't following him on Instagram, you really should. Matt's great, man. He does a wonderful thing for the Boog community. He's all over Hawaii taking pictures, all the contests, and he just has amazing content on his YouTube channel, or he has a YouTube channel, but Instagram is where to follow the guy. He really is amazing. And I noticed he recently got I don't know if you've had it or he's got a vinyl cutter, so he can make vinyl transfer stickers like this. So I got a few of these that just came in. I just wanted to check and make sure they were cool. So I got a few of these right now, but I got more of them coming. And I have the helmet logo, which is like this one right back up here. You can kind of see about behind me. I have a few of these coming too for the vinyl transfer, and I have 5 Rings logo stickers like this one right here that are also coming. So I imagine the next week I'll get them all, everything up. I'll be on the website, in the website store, so you guys could pick these things up if you want to. Every little bit helps, and if I sell out, I'll be feeding Matt some more work, and I know he cranked them out super quick, same day, man. It was amazing. So how's it going, Nick? And hi, Roz. Good. Glad to see some people in here already, and that's cool. So if anybody's got any questions, fire them away in the chat down, where it says say something down there on the bottom. I believe it's on this side. Last few chats I've been pointing over here just because I think it's opposite hand or something in the live feed that I'm looking at. So I think it's over here. So if anybody's got any questions, hit me up. I'm happy to answer anything. So I guess maybe the first thing maybe I want to get into today is I know there was a question last week about rounded to sharp rails. I know I have that description on a few of my boards that get posted on Instagram or Facebook. And, I realize that's kind of a thing that maybe people don't understand what I'm talking about. But what I'm ultimately talking about is how the rail, the chine piece rolls over and you stack the 2 rail pieces. You have the pinstripe and then you have the outer rail. So what happens after that, after you get those pieces on, you cut them off the razor knife, you have to go back and sand that edge usually. And traditionally, what that edge is rounded off pretty consistently all the way through the rail. It's rounded off and it's not too sharp. I know some board manufacturers keep that rail real sharp, and historically, I think there was a thing called the diamond rails that were put on some boards that were left really sharp in that kind of situation. So diamond rails were left really sharp. They weren't rounded off, at least the ones that I've seen. So, but what I've kind of tried to do is kind of do a combination of both of those things. So like in the front half of the board, I take and round off the front part of the rails, but then as it fades towards the tail, I keep it sharper. So it goes from a rounded in the front to sharper out the back of the tail. And my thinking is on that is that, when you're leaning forward, you don't want sticky rail. You don't want, when you're leaning forward to drive, you don't want anything to be sticky and catch on that rail. If it's super pointed up towards the front of the part, I think it's better. I know surfboards do this a lot too, where they have a really rounded rail, front part of the rail, and then they start going to a hard down rail towards the back, and it gets really sharp. So the same kind of thinking with the rounded to sharp rails. And I've got a couple boards right back here too. This is my 420 board. I still haven't ridden it, but so what happens, and you can kind of see along this rail point here, it's nice and sharp towards the front, but then as it fades towards the back, it really starts to sharpen. You can sharpen up like through this rail point. I'm doing my best to kind of show you guys and this also has channeled rails too. So this little part's also channeled out. That's what when you see channeled rails, that's what happens. Is that about midpoint of the board, out the tail of the board, it starts to channel out through the rail face. So what that does is, so the front part of the board here, it's nice and easy. So when you're driving and leaning forward, it's not catchy. But when you sit back on the tail or you're leaning into the face of the wave in the back half of the board, this sharper point towards the back really starts to bite and catch, and just it like knifes into the wave face, and it just creates more hold. So yeah, I mean, I'm a real big fan of doing rounded to sharp rails, but like I said, traditionally it's just rounded like how it's rounded through the front part of the board. That same round would just carry all the way through. That's kind of how most boards are done. It's just one sanded rail all the way through. So that's kind of the thing with rounded to sharp channel rails. So anybody got any questions? Like I said, anybody got any questions? Hit it up over in the chat over here, and I'm happy to answer anything. Yeah, I know some people can't get here. If you miss a chat, Jerabro, hey, you can always watch the replays. I leave them up on the YouTube channel after the fact, and you can go back through at your leisure and watch. I realize they go for an hour. That's a lot for people sometimes to sit around and watch. So you can go back and watch it whenever you want, but it's always good if you can make it, because, you can add some content to what's going on here. And I think the more questions I get and the more things we can talk about, the better, so, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm going to keep on doing it every Friday night from 6 to 7 my time. So I'm just hoping more people can start showing up during the little window, and it's all good. If 5 people are here, great. That's fine with me. I'm going to keep on doing it because I want to spread I'm going to have weekly topics that I'm going to kind of bullet point on, and then I'm going to take questions as they come in through the chat window, So, Nick, I will get to the wonton board. You can probably see it. It's sitting right there. So, another thing is that I mentioned this board last week too, is that this is my 272 board. It's a full rounded one-piece rail board too. So you can see this is all like one piece that rounds all the way through this rail. And it also does a little bit of the same thing where it's softer through the front, and then it sharpens out like through this back point of the rail. This one doesn't channel out. It's just it's kind of hard to do that with a rounded one-piece rail. You're already asking a lot of the material to do this wrap over the rail. So it's kind of hard for me to channel this out on top of everything else. But I really do love this board. I just rode it this week, earlier in the week when there was a little bit more swell. Man, I really love this board. It's got all my details that I usually put on my boards that are, my contours and traction bumps and 3 to 6 channel, 3 to 6 scallop tail. That's the little JB stamp that I don't do that too often on boards, but that's my initials down there. And if you ever look at my boards, they're all signed with that same JB. So usually I put the board number down in this tail part of the tail corner and give you maybe sometimes I'll write some specs on there and the customer name if I got room and in time to do it all. But usually I always put the board number and my initials down in that corner. Yeah, Jerabo. I've done some stringer talk stuff in the very, I think it was the very first chat that I did that we talked a little bit about some different types of combinations of stringers and stuff. But there's a cold water here at home. Out front here in Morro Bay, the water is almost always in the 50 degree range. It's 50 to 60 degrees almost always here. So for me, my typical setup here is a single stringer with slick mesh, and it works great for me. That's kind of what I like these days. Some of my older tubes board had V stringers, just standard V stringers, so they go from the corner of the tail up towards the center of the board. There was double stringers, and that was before mesh, so we weren't putting a lot of mesh in boards back then. So over time what I did was I really like that flex though, the V stringer setup, but without mesh. That works out here, but it's just a little bit stiffer obviously than just a single stringer, and obviously the flex characteristics are different too. So, but over time I've really got around here, I just get back to the single stringer and mesh. It worked great for me here. When I went and then like the inverted V is obviously the opposite way. So you got regular V and you got the inverted V. So there's two different, but you just got to think about how, and you can go back and watch the first chat I did some talking about what the different things are. And then you got the Trident systems, which are short, long, short, or long, short, long. I've done all these different combinations. And then also, we got different diameters of stringers, hollow tubes, or solid rods. So that I got a bunch of different things that I can do with the boards that and reinforcing. It all comes down to how you want your board to flex, and they all have different characteristics. It just depends on what you're looking for in the board. All right. I guess I could get into the since we're still kind of waiting for maybe some people to show up, but local guy here, long time tubes guy, he's been riding tubes boards forever. He got his hands on this Chris Juan Wonton, legendary stand-up guy from Hawaii. He's down in Southern California these days. He runs like the DK War stuff, but this is one of his early boards. I guess it originally was a 48-inch board, but then you could tell just by looking at this, the first thing I noticed is that half the logo here, half the stamp logo is cut off. And what happened is I guess it was too long, and then he brought it back to Buzz. I want to say Buzz made this board originally, but he went back to Buzz and had him shorten it up. It was a little bit too long, and then put a full crescent tail on it. That's why it's kind of chopped off a little bit. And so the guy who owns this, he evidently, this thing was up in the rafters forever at the Tubes factory when I was there. There was a stack of boards way up in the rafters of the stuff, and this is one of the boards up there. I remember seeing it back in the day, but I guess the local guy talked him into selling it, so he got his hands on this thing. But it's obviously it's creased pretty good on the bottom. It's got some tail corner issues here too with tail corner D-lams. Probably because it was stored on the tail or took some impact damage. That's like I said, you always want to store your board on the nose, not the tail. Otherwise, you'll lead into problems like this. So anyway, I'm gonna remake this thing, and we're gonna tweak it out a little bit. And obviously it's just a flat bottom, so we're gonna do some modern channels and stuff. Probably a single to double concave. That's what we're gonna do. It's all gonna be all the same dimensions and everything and specs and stuff. But we're gonna change up the color scheme a little bit too. But that's kind of the rundown of the wonton board that I'm working on. Then I got these other there's three pieces of core back here, 3 boards I just started on. I just finished 4 this week. That 3 of them went to Southern California and one went to Puerto Rico. Got 3 of those shipped out today. The 4th one won't go until Monday because the guy just moved. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on with those boards. And yeah, definitely. It gets cold up in Washington, but but it's probably very similar to what happens here. I know our water will drop into the 40s sometimes in the wintertime here, and then if we get a really good pump and south swell, sometimes it'll get up into the low 60s. But the water temperature here usually is in the 50s almost all year round. So let's see. So that was rounded to sharp rails. Another thing I wanted to kind of cover tonight was some people when I'm talking to them, they're kind of curious about the difference between nose cut and nose rocker, and I realize that's kind of two different terms that are kind of in relation to the nose. But so when you think of rocker on a surfboard, usually you're thinking about how the whole thing rockers out. But on a bodyboard, ultimately what you want is the whole board flat. Like through the whole deck part of the board, all the way through should be flat, all the way through the nose. But now sometimes some DK guys like to have. This board actually has just a little bit of nose, what I call nose kick in it. So this one just has just right up towards the front part of the nose right here. It kicks up a little bit, and I do that by when I shim the bottom of the nose. So so this has just a little bit of nose rocker, but what I just call is nose kick, because it's just in the very last little bit of the nose, so it like kicks up. And what that does is and I like that for my prone boards, just because like when I go and I'm leaning forward on the board, my hands don't slip off the front of the nose as much. And this one also has some deck contour, so it goes down and then it pops back up, but then it also has the nose kick, so it's like it really does improve the grip on the nose with your hands. Now on DK boards, what will happen is you'll shim the bottom of the nose and really kick it up. Some guys like their board all the way flat through even DK guys will like it all the way flat, all the way through the board. But they're like, it gets back to like one of the Hurley boards that I used to always make at Tubes. That one had a lot of nose rocker in it, so it really did. It would start further back on the board, like almost back this far into the board, and then start really rockering up all the way through the front part of the nose. So a lot of DK guys will like that nose rocker in their board, just because that way when you're leaning forward and driving, you're not going to catch the nose and it's not going to kick up. Now, so that's kind of what nose rocker is. Nose rocker to me is how the top part of the board will curve up a little bit just in the front part of the board here. Now, nose cut happens on the bottom of the board. Now, you can see my board here. That what happens is this is shaped off the it's flat all the way through the bottom of the board, except this one does have some channels in it, but it's flat all the way through. And then what happens is I use the saw that's right behind me. It's a swinging band saw, and it swings on a radius, and then that's what makes this cut right here, the nose cut, right? And that eases the water into the board. And you'll see like a lot of like older school boards. What they'll do is my boards are very, very soft. It's a very soft entry, and the cut goes further back into the board. So what I feel is that that because it's not so blunt. Like you see a lot of, like I said, a lot of the old school boards, it'll resolve flat within like 4 or 5, 6 inches of the board. Mine go almost 9 inches into the board. So what it does is it's a softer entry into the board. It does make the nose thinner through the whole front part of the board, but that also makes for a flexier nose too. So it's got, for me, that's my standard way of doing boards. It'll go about 9 inches back into the board, and it's just that way when you're leaning forward. What I feel is like when you go to lean forward, if it's blunter and it resolves like 4 to 5 inches and then it goes flat, what you're doing, it's really rounded and really sharp. So what happens is when you lean forward, that just pushes water and it slows you down, where this is a softer entry into the board. I think that's one of the things that makes maybe my board a little bit faster, especially when you're leaning forward, is that you're not pushing all that water, because the nose cut is more gentle and it's not as direct, it's not as blunted off. So there's something to know the dynamics and the characteristics of a proper nose cut. So I've seen, there's stuff online that I've got different guys shaping stuff off where, like I said, I use a horizontal swinging bandsaw to do mine, but I know guys have like like shaper table setups and stuff to do it. But you're talking about a router bit or a shaper bit that can only cut so far back into the board, and that's how come a lot of the older boards have more blunted off noses, just because they're not going to spend the time shaping all that thing back into the board. They just run it through sideways through their shaper table, and it chunks it off, and then they just go back to the sander or something and sand it all off. So yeah, I mean, when I sat down and drew the saw back here that's right behind me. all up and made sure all the radiuses was right and what, like how far from the pendulum that swings across here, and so it would cut further back into the board. You know, I see, like I said, the smaller the radius of the circle, the more blunt it's going to be. So the bigger the circle, the softer that nose cut on the bottom side of the board is going to be. And I occasionally have people going, man, your noses are so thin when I'm holding on to them. But that's one of the things that happens when you cut further back into the board. Is the nose is going to feel thinner than some other boards out there on the market. So yeah, I just think that that's the way to go. But I have some customers that say, hey, I want my nose blunted off more. So what I'll do is I have some ways to shim the saw to be able to cut. So, and then or I'll just hand shape it all off if they want something that's really blunted off. I know one of the boards I got to do right now is just like that. She wants it. The Beeline girl, Miranda, I made a few boards for her. She's like, oh man, I really want a more of a blunted nose. So we're gonna do that on that one. One of the boards I'm working on right now. Probably just hand shape that off. I probably won't even use the saw. You just get it with a razor knife and start cutting away and sanding, and that's the thing is that if you're gonna hand shape off that nose cut, it'll probably take me 20 minutes to do a proper, cut it all off, sand it all, make sure it's all good. Where this saw back here, I can do that cut in about 20 seconds, and then maybe another 20 or 30 seconds of sanding, and then the whole bottom part of the nose is done. So it's a real time saver to have this saw. If anybody in there has gotten any questions, feel free to fire them away. I'm definitely an open book and try to answer any questions that come into the live feed chat. So sometimes I feel like I get to rambling and on a topic and maybe it drags on a little bit. So if I see a question in there, I'll go at it right away. I guess it's over here, not over there. So yeah, geez, where are we at? 6:22. Questions about hydrophobic sprays and if it might help with speed, or thoughts on that, Omar. Boy, I've never even heard of hydrophobic sprays. Is that maybe something you spray on the bottom of a board or something that maybe improves that, like the water or the hydrodynamics of the bottom of the board or something? Oh, what is a hydrodynamic spray? Oh, water repellent. Man, I don't know. I've never even heard of somebody spraying something like that on the bottom of a board or on a board. So oh geez, like Rain-X. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I've never even heard of anybody doing that. So yeah, I don't know. It's Surlyn Slick is the way to go, man. I don't know. It's pretty slippery. I don't think. If you maybe wanted to spray it on skins, but I don't know how it would react to the skins. Hey, Looney, how's it going? Yeah, I don't know. I've never experimented with it, and I've never really even heard anybody trying to put any kind of sprays like that on a board to make them go faster. Or, speed. Like I said, speed doesn't come from the board. I've kind of covered that in a couple of the other things. Speed doesn't come from the board. Speed comes from the wave. You can only go as fast as the wave's going to push you. And then how does the board handle the speed that the wave provides? That's ultimately what it comes down to. Car polish. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Like a wax or something. I wonder if that would do something to make it slipperier on the bottom. But I don't know. If you had maybe an old board with an old HD PE bottom slick it's kind of a little bit more rough, there might be some kind of benefit you could get from putting something like that on the bottom of a board. Maybe. I wouldn't suggest doing it to anything that's new with a modern Surlyn. I think they're plenty fast enough. No, Omar. There's no Surlyn that's even made in the United States that's for bodyboards anymore. It all comes from overseas, and there's just basic color ranges that are available to me and all the manufacturers in the world. Everybody pretty much buys from the same people in Taiwan. So, they come out with their color list every year and they send it out to all the manufacturers, and it is what it is. You get what you get. I put in requests for certain colors that I've had in the past, but they didn't have this year. I'm like, oh man, I really like to have like a silver bottom slick. I've had some of those in the past, and I'd really like to get silver again. This year they didn't have orange. I went to I really wanted orange bottom slick again, and they didn't have any of it available, right? Because all the big factories are buying it all up for boards, and then on the little fish in a big pond. So I get what I can get, and I try to, I still try to pick the colors that I think that are pretty unique. That I try to, I mean, I'm gonna have black and white always. It's just those two colors for me are just basic. I'm gonna make sure I always have those in stock and reorder them every single time. But then I like to get it. There's some blue colors, the teal colors I've had in the past. Those are coming too. I have some teal bottom slick and teal skins coming, and some other stuff. So yeah. So I mean, I just I only can get what I can get. Clear slicks. I know I've seen some clear slicks on some boards out there, but I don't know where they're getting it. I mean, it might be available to them, but it's not available to me. Jervo, he's asking about some delaminated corners in the slick, kind of like what we were looking at this board right back. This board might be something similar to what you're having. I mean, this is a full crescent tail here, but same kind of thing. That's just this kind of stuff happens like a lot on boards, especially the older they get. Like I said, don't store your board on the tail, number one. Store it on the nose, and then that leads to less of this stuff. But if you get your board gets tossed in the shore break and it goes tail first into the sand, you're going to have some problems. There's only so much as manufacturers we can do about that kind of stuff. Now, as far as fixing it goes, what you can do is kind of peel that slick back, and then I don't know if you have a hot glue gun. That's a really easy way to kind of do some minor repairs. If you have a little hot glue gun, you can kind of peel it back and get some hot glue in there and push it back down and hold it till it dries. That's kind of an easy way to kind of do it. Hot glue gun's a really good fix for a lot of stuff. You just got to be careful with the heat. You don't, because all the foam's sensitive to the heat, and you can kind of shrink stuff, and then you just don't want to do any more damage. So be gentle with it, and don't put a ton of hot glue in there, just enough to hold it. That's what I'd suggest to do. Fix any kind of little defects or bad spots on a board. Just use a hot glue gun. There's also another stuff called sponge res out there. I know it's on Amazon, and I think eBodyboarding has some, and some of the online bodyboard people have sponge res, and it works too, but it just doesn't cure as fast. So you really gotta be careful with that stuff. It works definitely though. I know a lot of guys will sponge res their leash plugs and stuff in too to help kind of seal the hole off too. So there's a lot of cool things. Yeah, it's not, like I said, hot glue gun's a hell of a lot easier than using sponge res, Sterling. Yeah, I really do suggest a hot glue gun before sponge res for repairs. Now, if you're trying to see, like I said, if you're trying to seal off a leash plug hole or something, you can just get your hole in there. However you want to use, a hot screwdriver or a drill bit, a smaller drill bit. Either one of those kind of is good for doing the hole. Once you have the hole in there and you go to put your leash plug in, you can put some silicone or sponge res in there when you when you go to screw the thing down, and that helps seal off the hole and helps stop water getting inside your board. Yeah, Looney says about the parchment paper and an iron. I know that there's some ways you can heal skins and stuff like that. Obviously that's a way to do some stuff. You just got to be careful. Like I said, you got to be careful with the heat. It's better to go less heat and then ease it in and ease in the heat. Don't go too hot, otherwise you're gonna do more damage than what you're trying to do. You're gonna damage your board instead of repair it. Yeah, sponge res, Sterling. I think it says on the thing it takes like at least 24 hours before that stuff cures. I wouldn't take your board in the water at least for 24 hours after you use that stuff. You really got to let it cure up. And sponge res is really similar to that old stuff they called shoe goo. The shoe goo and sponge res to me they're pretty similar products. So you can use. I mean, I would maybe say use sponge res before shoe goo, but as an alternative, you can use shoe goo or silicone. But any of those, they take a longer cure time, so you really got to let it sit around. Yeah, keep the questions coming, guys. I really do like. I mean, like I said, I have a couple. Hey Phil, yeah, I like questions. I have topics I like to cover, but man, I really will. I want to talk to people and answer their questions instead of me just rambling on the topics I want to talk about. But Phil asked if I ever used Ourcell cores. Well, old school Ourcell, true Ourcell is not available anymore. Now there's some modern remakes of Ourcell, which is Ourcell is a blend of EPS, which is styrofoam, and PE. So what they do is they blend a PE and a styrofoam together, and then that's what basically what Ourcell is. And there's some modern versions of that. Some foam manufacturers make it. I've actually experimented with that a little bit, but to me, it's an inferior product. It's super light, super water repellent. It does not take on water at all. I've made one board that I have personally. I've made one. You know, I know some manufacturers don't call it Ourcell; they call it some other stuff, and I don't want to talk about what they do. I just want to talk about what I do. But I got it from a Southern California manufacturer, and they called it iFoam. You can probably do an internet search and find a Southern California foam manufacturer that makes it. It's called iFoam. And I got a few pieces of that, made a board out of it, but what the problem with it is that it dents, and it doesn't have memory like it gets elbow dents, and it doesn't pop back like how polypropylene would do. So once you sink your elbow into it or anything, it doesn't come back. I think it was maybe the second chat that I did. I actually pulled out some foam pieces, and that one of those iPhone pieces in that chat and the second Boog Chat I did. So you can go back and watch that, and you can see how some characteristics of some different cores. So that was all in there. But like I said, and another thing is that because it's a PE based foam, all the Surlyn and all the skins, it's a whole different way to laminate stuff together. It gets back to the dissimilar materials that I've talked about before and how things laminate together. You got to have special skins to be able to laminate or special bottom slicks, because I get all my bottom slicks backed with polypropylene foam. That's how they come from me from the manufacturer. So that makes heat laminating together very easy, because you got the same materials, you're heat laminating stuff together. So all the Surlyn and stuff that I get won't work on an Ourcell core or a PE core board. That's why I like to just stick with polypropylene, because I really do feel it's the best. So yeah, I have experimented with it. I have one board. The thing is that my one iPhone board or Ourcell board that I made for myself, it probably lasted me about 3 or 4 months, and it's toast, man. I might pull it out I'll pull it out for the next chat and show you guys what that board looks like. It is just it's a wreck. There are so many dents in the deck of the board. I even tried to put elbow pads in it to try it, because I knew it was going to dent. So I tried to put an extra layer of PE skin right around where the elbow is at, and I mean, that helped in that one spot, but everywhere else has just crazy dents in it. Even when I'm duck diving, sometimes I'll shove my knee into closer to the tail to duck dive, and you can even see knee dents in the tail part of the board just from me shoving my knee into it. Hey Nick, you were asking about some marbled skins and stuff, or slicks. Those marbled slicks aren't available anymore, at least anywhere I can find, or from the people I get bottom slicks from. So you get you get the straight colors all the way through. You can't get the stripes or the marbling and everything. I did talk to Buzz about that stuff back in the day and how they were doing it, and I think they did a lot of that stuff when they were changing colors through the machine, and stuff would melt. They would have different colors of the pellets and stuff that they melt down and then squish it all out to make the flat bottom slicks. But they would have ranges of little color pellets, and that's how they would make that stuff. But the people that I get it from, they just don't mess around with that stuff. They're just one color, and that's how I can get it. Jerbo, yeah, I do have some thoughts about a bottom slick color and the least attractive to sharks. Yeah, I'll tell you right now, you'll never see a yellow or red bottom slick on any board that I make. I will never buy yellow or red bottom slick. I have some stories about that. Well, right out here out front, I was out in the water. I don't know, it's probably about 10 years ago now. Busy day, lots of people in the water, and I just caught a wave. Was paddling back out. I look down the line, and I see there's a couple people getting out of the water down the line a little bit. It's probably quarter mile down the beach, and all of a sudden this kid's just paddling straight at me towards the beach, and he's like, dude, some lady's board just got hit by a shark down the line. And I'm looking down the line, and it's just like, then by that time it was just like the word was spreading through the lineup, and it was just like mass exit out of the water. There's at least 100 people in the water that day. It was just a killer day for surf. And sure enough, that lady's board was solid red. And so to me, I don't know. That did me in for red. I won't do red. Now for yellow, I don't know if anybody's ever done an internet search, Google search for the term yum yum yellow. Do it sometime. So what happened with the yum yum yellow is in World War II, the Navy did a bunch of dye tests in the water for what they would do is they would release if a ship sank, they would release dyes in the water, colored dyes, to help find the people that were kind of floating around in the water. So if a plane was or a helicopter or plane was flying over, they could look down and spot people. But they learned real quick that yellow probably wasn't the best color, and the Navy coined the term yum yum yellow because it definitely attracted sharks more than any other color. So no yellow, no red. Won't see them on my boards. Now, as far as decks go, maybe I might do that. Also, I've done some boards. Also, I have some what I call hologram stamping foil, and what it does is it kind of like it radiates color. Let me grab one. I think I have it right here. Anyway, so the hologram foil I have, and it's really cool, but I really only like doing it on the decks of boards. You can kind of see it here. It's almost like when you stamp this and then the light reflects off of it, you get some really cool, it'll like rainbow change colors. So it's a really cool stamping foil for certain parts of the board, but I won't put this on the bottom of the board. Why? Because I don't know how many fishermen are out there, but what's a fishing lure look like to you? It's nice and shiny and bright and reflects light and all that stuff. So yeah, Nick wants to get eaten. So I have this, like I said, the hologram foil is really cool. It like radiates light and stuff. It kind of works almost like fishing lure, but I will not put this on the bottom of the board. I'll put it on the deck of a board or maybe rails, but I don't really like putting it on rails, only on the deck of a board. So those are a few of the things and colors and stuff that I try to avoid in certain parts of the board, just because, especially the bottom side, because that's all that that they're looking at is what's on the bottom of the board. Nah, Jeremy, I don't think you're the only person thinking about certain colors. And I know I've done a lot of thinking about it over the years. A lot of my old tubes boards were yellow bottom boards. Also, I don't know if anybody remembers the old Mick Fanning incident in South Africa. I don't know if anybody looked at the color of his board. It was all, Mick Fanning always had yellow rails and yellow bottom boards. That was kind of his thing. And we all know what happened down there about that if you follow the World Surf League and stuff. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody follows Mick Fanning, but right after that happened, all of his boards are blue now. So there you go. Blues are good. I really think blues are one of the best colors you can have on a board, because blues or greens in the ocean, I think, are one of the ones that kind of, I don't want to say go invisible, but they're probably the best colors for boards for if you're worried about attracting the bad fish. Looney, are you asking? You asked a question in there, Looney, about do I have HDPP for a deck or regular 8-pound? HDPP. I don't really know what HDPP is. HDPE now. HDPE is polyethylene, high density polyethylene. That's what those letters stand for. HDPP would be high density polypropylene. I've never even heard of HDPP. I've heard of HDPE. Now that stuff's all used for bottom slicks. It's like the harder plastic. And as far as skins go, traditionally stuff's either is all the 8-pound PE skins that are kind of squishy. Now and then crosslink PE is also another one that people use on some boards still, but they're usually used for the lower line boards. Crosslink's kind of a fun material to work with. It's very pliable compared to the thicker skins. So yeah, I stick with more traditional skins. Just feel that they're the easiest to work with, and they're readily available in a range of colors, and I can get 5 colors that are made in the United States, which I feel are superior to the stuff that I get from the same place overseas where I get all the other specialty colors come from overseas. So the 5 colors I can get in the United States are black, white, yellow, blue, and red. So those skins I can get here domestically in big rolls, which there really are superior skins to, I feel, because they're a 16th inch thicker. So, and they're a little, I think, they're a little bit more dense than the stuff I get from overseas. But people love their colors, so I definitely try to get a range of stuff that are outside those 5 basic colors. I'll sign the release of liability. Funny. Well, shoot. What if I told you if I had 1 red HDPE bottom slick, Nick? But like I said, it won't stick to a polypropylene board. It has to go because it's backed with PE, a skin or a foam, so I can't stick that to a polypropylene board. It has to go to a PE board. Yeah, Nick. I can get some Dow core. I just don't have any right in stock right now. But the next time I order some of the big, you can see the big roll of red skins right over there. It's in the hallway. That's where I kind of store some materials right around the corner and stuff. That's the big roll of red skin right back there. But next time I'm going to have to order some black skin here real soon. And the Dow or PE core comes from the same manufacturer, so I might get a few pieces of it just to have. I'm not a big fan of making those boards. I have a hard time keeping PE boards flat too. There's something about with my lamination process, and stuff tends to what I call potato chip up a little bit. You get a little bit of side to side rocker and a little bit of nose to tail rocker. No matter what I do, it's real hard to keep PE boards flat the way that my laminator works and the way I've learned to laminate. I know at the Tubes Factory, we had all kinds of special rocker boards that sat on top of the laminator that would reverse rocker board out that would kind of help hold it. And when it cooled off, it would be flat. And I don't want to get into all that stuff. I just want to keep making PEP boards the way that I know how to do it. And my boards come out flat. And I still feel that PE core is an inferior core to polypropylene. You can watch, like I said, one of the previous ones. I went into all the core stuff, and you can go watch that and kind of explain why and the different characteristics and stuff. What's my opinion? JK asked, "What's my opinion on flat, straight tails, like non-crescent?" Yeah, like a straight flat tail, kind of, or a square tail. Sometimes we'll call them square tails, but fast and loose. If you go to the Run and Bodyboards website, there's a brief description of some tail stuff on there. But I have one of my very first tombstones that I have. It's a real big one that I still have. It's a square tail, and it's really the only square tail board I've ever really ridden. But it's so loose, it's loose. It's fast and loose. I think that's the thing about square tails. You look at all those OG moire, the real early moire boards that were all square tails. And you learned real quick that they were loose and they didn't hold their line. So the first thing you did was start putting skegs in the bottom of the boards, those old moire boards. In fact, I have one right here. Watch this. Check this out. So square tail, old school. This is I'm not sure. This isn't a numbered moire, but you can see it's an old school moire, and it's a square tail, skegs. It's the only thing that won't hold its line. Without these things, you're just going to be side slipping all over the place. So, yeah, this is even pre-bottom slick. This has skin on the bottom, and yeah, it doesn't even have a hard bottom slick. Pretty cool old school board. This one's pretty cool too, because if you can look at it, it even says Moire Boogie on the skag right here too. It's pretty cool. I don't have very many vintage collector boards like a lot of guys, but I have a few. Yeah, I got I have a golf ball bottom slick Moire, and There's some other things back in the hallway over here. There's a stack of stuff here. If anybody ever wants to come by and stop by the shop, I'm more than happy to break out stuff and we can kind of look at some old boards and stuff. Yeah, it's cool to get nostalgic sometimes about the history of bodyboarding and the lessons that have been learned through the years about, okay, well, all the original moray boards were all square tail, kind of like that one, and then then you put skegs in it to kind of help hold the line so they don't side slip out. And then over time, and then right after the square tails, in my understanding, is that they did a full crescent tail. That was the next tail that they did, even before clip crescent. So what happened is they made the full crescent tail. It went out. Moray made a bunch of those. They went out to the shops, and within a couple months, he was getting all, just like I showed you back on this one, all the corner, because all the shops displayed them all on their tails. And there was all these delam issues with the tail corners. The shop sent them back to Moray, and what did he do? He's like, oh well, shit, I'll just clip this off right here and retail the board and then send them back. Ta-da, clip crescent tail. 30 years later, it's on still 80% of the board. So that's the history of the evolution of a clip crescent tail. And it is built for durability, not performance. Even a full crescent tail is still going to perform way better than a clip crescent tail because it's going to this tail corner is going to bite into the wave, where a clip is going to be a little more side slippy. So anything comes off to a point is going to be a better performing and better holding tail on a board than a clipped or square. But hey, sometimes you want to get fun and side slippy and loose. So there's nothing wrong. There's no right or wrong. It's just how do you want your board to handle. Sometimes you want your board to be side slippy. It's kind of fun and or to feel something different. I'm all about building what a customer wants, not. I have ideas and thoughts about how you can improve performance of a board, but it's ultimately what the customer wants. Hey Nick, Nick's asking about V stringers. I know drop knee riders. I've made them both. For drop knee riders, I really do suggest the V systems, whether it's reverse V or standard V. I've done them both for the drop knee guys. So. It ultimately comes down to how you want your board to flex. So if you want a flexy tail corner, you do the reverse. If you're going to sit back on your tail corner and you want the tail corner of your board to flex, I'd say go reverse V because you don't have a stringer off in that tail corner. Now, if you want a really stiff tail corner where it's not going to flex and it's going to hold and bite and it's not going to flex, then go with the regular V's because you're going to have a real stiff tail corner in that way. But when you do them in this way, what it does is, like I said this maybe in one of the previous chats, is that you end up your shin and your knee end up following the line of the stringer of the reverse V's, and how your back legs depends on which stance, but your back leg is going to follow the line of that stringer. So you're going to be really kind of stiff underneath your leg in that situation, which some guys like, and then you're going to end up with a really flexy tail corner. So that's kind of the difference between the V's and the DK stuff. And like I said, I went into it a little bit on a previous chat, but that's kind of the basic rundown on that. I don't know if anybody, yeah, no worries, Nick. Something else I wanted to kind of get into, maybe a little bit, another topic I wanted to touch on tonight was, I get requests to make a really wide, what's the limitations of how wide can it be? How long can it be? How thick can it be? It's there's all these limiting factors of what's possible, and it ultimately comes down to the materials I can get, right? So most always, as far as length goes of a board, it's always the bottom slick, because I can only get bottom slicks up to about 45 inches. That's like when I buy them from overseas, like I'm talking about, they come at about 45 inches long. So really, I don't like making boards over 44.5 inches. So that only leaves me a half inch of play off the nose and tail when I laminate that piece on. And if it shifts a little bit during the laminate, it's better to have a little bit of overlap on the nose and tail when you're laminating these skins on, in case something shifts around. And it's just really better to have a little bit of overlap on the nose and tail. And only having a half inch on a board to play around doesn't leave you much room for error. So bottom slick is almost always the limitations with the length of a board. So bottom slicks are almost always the limiting factor with the length of a board. Yeah, I guess so. But I do have some longer stuff coming on this. Like I actually was able to, instead of buying it in individual sheets that are 45 inches long, I actually got they had some rolls that are available. So actually, I got a roll of white Surlyn coming that will basically make any length of board I can get. Then it comes down to the core. Okay, because now if I have a 100-foot long roll of Surlyn, I can cut that thing to any length. But then it comes down to the core length. Okay, well, the longest cores, PP cores I can get, the cores that I buy come from a U.S. manufacturer, and they come in big blocks. And then the distributors that I buy from cut those blocks up into usable sizes for me. So it cuts down on some of the things that I have to do from that big thick block. The big thick block is 4 foot by 6 foot by 6 inches, and so when I'm buying core, I can have them cut it up however I want, but the longest piece that they can get is a 6 foot piece. And I actually did get a few pieces that were 6 foot long, but they're all gone now. So usually all my cores are 48 inches long. That's the longest core that the standard cores I get are 48 inches long. So with this roll that I'm getting soon, I'll be able to make up to a 48-inch long board, no problem. So I think that's going to turn a lot of people on to maybe, people have been asking me, oh, I want a 46-inch board, but I can't do it. Yeah, but I don't really want to get too much into like beater boards and that kind of stuff. Anything. I mean, a stand-up boogie is one thing. I'd be interested in building some true stand-up boogies, but I don't want to get into stand-up shapes or stand-up soft top boards. That's not my thing. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm always going to build bodyboards, not surfboards. So I usually always turn down anybody who asks me, hey, can you build me a 5 foot long, soft top stand-up board? I'm like, no, I'm not the guy. I like to stay in my lane with what I do. There's plenty of people out there, and there's plenty of people that have been building soft top boards and know what they're doing. I'm just going to build bodyboards, But a 48-inch long board for certain people might be something I can do for people in the future. Just also with that is that the shipping, anything over about 45 inches, the shipping cost starts going up quite a bit. So you're gonna take a hit on the shipping if you have to box that thing up and ship it out. So just be ready. The shipping cost might be a little bit more than shipping a standard like 42-inch bodyboard. So that's one of the factors on that. Now, as far as skins go, skins are another limiting factor. The skins that I buy from overseas, they come the same 45-inch length. And you need to wrap those skins over the nose and over the tail, so that takes length out of what you can do. So that's why you see a lot of longer boards that have tail pieces on them, because that way you don't have to wrap the skin over the tail, and that gives you a little bit more length you can put into a board, because you still want to, sometimes you put a nose piece and a tail piece on a board that's really long, because the skin there's not enough skin to wrap over the front and back of the board. But like I said, the 5 colors that I can get domestically here come in huge rolls. So those 5 colors I can take, they come in super long rolls. So that's kind of like what the Surlyn is. I'll be able to do longer boards with just those basic 5 colors. Unless you want a nose and tail piece, then we might be able to get into the 45-inch kind of skins that come, the specialty colors that come from overseas. So once all the materials land, I'll put some posts out there about that kind of stuff, about the longer stuff. But like I said, right now all I can do is 44.5 inch. Okay, another limiting factor is the thickness. Okay, so like I said, the blocks that I buy come in 6 inches, and then I always get down to how you cut that block up because you don't want waste, right? You want to minimize the waste on all this stuff, because I hate to buy foam and then have to sand a bunch of it off. So I usually, since it's a 6 inch piece, I usually cut into 3 2-inch pieces. And so basically on one of those blocks, I can get 9 pieces of core, right? So, but occasionally what I'll do is I'll have them cut them into 2 3-inch pieces, and I only get 6 blocks out of that core. So you can obviously imagine that the cost per piece, the cost per piece for a 3-inch is quite a bit, it's definitely more. So with that 3-inch piece, with a 2-inch thick piece of core, after you stack the deck skin on it and what I call the material sandwich, the deck skin and the bottom slick, you can make up to a 2 3/8 inch board out of a 2-inch piece core. But now people don't want that thick of a board. Say you only want a 2-inch thick board. What I'll do is I'll sand that core piece down. It's like the very first step you do is sand the piece down to the thickness you want for that core. So when you stack up the skins that you put on it, it comes out to the right finished thickness. But if we're a 3-inch thick core, if you start with a 3-inch thick core, you can make up to 3 3/8. But I'll tell you, I have pretty big hands, and man, I've made some 3-inch thick boards, and I can barely get my hands around the rails. You got to have some King Kong hands to be able to hold on to a 3-inch thick board. So, but you could take that 3-inch core and sand it down to almost all the way down to anywhere above the 2-inch, because you wouldn't want to sand below that 2-inch. You just use a 2-inch piece of core. But so the 3-inch thick piece of core can be sanded down, and you can make any thickness between 2 3/8 up to 3 3/8 out of a 3-inch piece of core. So that's as far as limiting factors go for a board. That's and also width. Width is another thing. The skins, the bottom slicks or the deck skins that I get from overseas come 2 feet wide. So, like I said, once again, you want to have some overlap because things shift around during the lamination process, and you got to be able to compensate for that. And like for bottom slicks aren't so bad because you can make a pretty wide board. You can almost make a wider than 2-foot board because of how the rails angle in. Because the bottom, if you look at the bottom edge of the board, it's not as wide as what the rail points are. So, but then you still have to get a deck on that, and then you have to round the rails over the chine piece over that. So really, if you have a 2-foot wide piece of skin, you can't do a 2-foot wide board because when you go to wrap the rails over, you're not going to have enough. You're going to be short on the top chine piece. So what you can do though is cut the chine piece off and then put a chine piece on, but that gets into wasting material. I'd rather roll the piece over and then you're not just cutting that piece off and throwing it in the recycle bin. As far as width goes, I don't really like to go wider than 23.5 inches. That's about as wide as I really like to go. And then if it gives me a little bit of play, just enough to get everything wrapped over, and you're cutting it really close, left or right on the width with a 23.5 inch finished board. That's about as wide as I like to go. It really is pushing it. If I ever remade a Mach 7, Sterling's asking, I would say a Mach 7.7. I don't want to get technical on you, but I'm talking about it. I have all the specs for it because I do have a really old one in the hallway back here. So I have an old, I think it's probably 2nd generation Mach 7.7. It still has the embossed deck stamp in it, and so I have all the specs off that. If I wanted to, I could rebuild one for somebody if they wanted to get all nostalgic about it. But I haven't done it, but I can. Yeah, well, a lot of people get really nostalgic about the old Mach 7.7. There are so many of those made out there. They're just, obviously, it's the most mass-produced board ever. But is it the best board ever? Maybe to some people because it's what they learned on. But is it as good as things that are being made now? It's not going to perform as well. I don't think it will. But like I said in the post earlier today, there's 3 factors. There's the board, the rider, and the wave. So all 3 factor into it. So I'm sure if you got you get Mike Stewart riding on a 7.7, he's still going to put it to the test, and he's going to look amazing riding it. So board's only one factor. Yeah, JK. Like I said, hey, there's still some 7.7s out there that you could find that are in really good shape that you could probably still ride without a problem. I know. I want to say my friend Andrew has one that's still in the wrapper. Is something that he had for. He sent me some pictures of one that was still in the wrapper, way old. It was just pretty impressive. I can't even believe it's still in the shrink wrap. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, so there's a lot of old boards you can still ride. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's fun to ride different things too because you get different feels off of everything, and sometimes you want to ride something that feels a little different. That's why I ride my Tombstones a lot. I have my standard shapes that kind of like the 2 boards that are back here, but I love riding my Tombstone. It doesn't ride like these boards at all. it's fun to ride different things and feel different feels from boards. It's part of the. It's good to have options, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Man, we're running down to the 7 o'clock hour. I mean, I took some questions, but I felt like I just rambled on about the topics I wanted to talk about. I hope everybody kind of got their questions in, what they wanted to hear. And if it, like I said, it's getting down to the witching hour, and I haven't had dinner yet. So if anybody's got any kind of final questions, why don't you toss them into the chat, and let's maybe look at wrapping this up. Yeah, Adam, vintage bodyboard collectors is. If you're on Facebook and you're not in the vintage bodyboard collector group, it's a really good place to get nostalgic about boards. And there's a lot of modern stuff that kind of gets posted in there. I was part of that group for a while, but there were some things that happened through there and some things that happened, so I'm not part of that group anymore. And I think it's a great group. There's a lot of really good people that run that. You know, Jordan Stollard's one of my really good friends. He's a great friend. I stay with him when I'm in Hawaii, and he's one of the moderators there, and he knows so much about boards. We have great conversations whenever we're together. Check out Vintage Bodyboard Collectors on Facebook. It's a pretty good one if you want to get nostalgic about boards. You know, I don't claim to know everything about all those old boards, but I know enough. You know. And you know, the internet's an amazing resource. You could just search Google Images and find damn near anything out there. So I mean, if I haven't heard or seen a board, that's kind of usually where I start. I start searching Google Images and find things. And half of the image searches end up back at Vintage Bodyboard Collectors. It's pretty funny. So I guess if nobody's got any other questions, maybe I'll wrap this up and get to some dinner. Like I said, if anybody's got any questions, it's the last little window here for the week. You know, and like I said, I'm going to be doing these every week. I'll probably be around next week and doing another one next week. So if you guys didn't get your questions in this week, or you think of something between now and then you want to talk about, or a certain topic, hit. Yeah, tube Maligs. Yeah. I've made quite a few Maligs boards back in the day. I've actually made a few for Kyle Moligro personally. I made a few boards for him. I made this one crazy board. Maybe I'll pull out some pictures of this one that I made. It had the crazy one. I mean, I've built some pretty crazy tails, but this one he wanted. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. It was like his shape, but the tail went down into it had like two little crescents like this to a flat square tail. It was wacky. I built it for him and sent it to him, and I think he ended up hacking the tail off because he didn't like it and put a full crescent or something on that tail. But I have original pictures of that board that are somewhere in my picture collection. I got thousands of pictures of boards. It's crazy, from the ones I've done in the Tubes days and all the Ronin boards I've done. Oh, Phil, yeah, the one that Phil sent me some pictures of this pretty crazy hard glassed bodyboard that. Hey, Rio, good to see you, man. You made it. Yeah, Phil, that board you sent me. I mean, I think it had glassed on fins, and you made it, man. It was pretty interesting. Interesting concept of that thing. It had a pretty crazy deep crescent tail, and it was kind of spoon shaped out. I instantly thought it was a knee board just because of the way the deck looked. I've seen some of those old school, a Wagner. I think it was a Wagner hard. I've seen like a knee board shape. That's kind of almost what I was thinking it looked like. There was this Wagner knee board. This guy, I was out at Rincon one day here in California, the Point Break down in Carpinteria, Santa Barbara area. I've been out there quite a few times. I love Rincon. Rincon's an amazing wave when it's working. But I was out there one day, and man, I was about halfway up the point around where the creek mouth's at, and man, this guy just came screaming on an outside wave on his knee, just way on a wide one, like all the way through me and passed out of sight. And then after a while, I caught one, then a little further down the point, and then he came swimming back past me, and I was like, "What the hell are you riding?" And he showed me. It was like the most craziest looking knee board. It's like a hard knee board. but it was kind of really fat in the front, and it went really thin out the back. It was kind of spoon shaped out and stuff. And I don't think it had skegs on it either. But man, the guy was down the line just flying so fast. It was amazing. So yeah, and that actually kind of opened my mind up a little bit about some variable thickness that you could maybe play around with. And I'm actually, one of the boards I'm working on right back here is going to be the very first one that I've ever done like that, where I'm building it for a guy named Cyril on Oahu, who I've built a few boards for here in the last couple months. But he approached me. He's like, "Hey man, what happens if we do the thicker in the back half of the board, and then it would thin out towards the front?" He's like, he's talking to me about like how he likes to sit back on his board. And he's a bigger dude, and he wants more buoyancy in the back half of his board. So this will be the first one I'm going to do like that, where I'm going to sand the core at a taper, so it's going to be thinner in the front and thicker in the back. So from the thinner in the nose, and it gets fatter through the back of the tail, instead of it just being one thickness all the way through. It's going to be the first one. I'm sitting around just this afternoon trying to figure out how I'm going to sand that core like that. It's going to be. I love a good challenge. So yeah, Rio's got a question about what's the importance for the wide point to taper down to the tail. Taper meaning like so you got your you got your nose, you got your wide point, you got your tail. So the more you pull in the tail versus having if you have a wider tail, what that means is you got a straighter rail line, kind of like how the tombstones work, where you get a really wide tail in those things. And what happens is you can't really put much curve in that, right? Because what happens is if you curve out from those points, it really pushes the wide point back further, because the wide point will be out past where the wide point would be, up closer to where you want your elbows. So the more you pull the tail in, the more curve you can get in the back half of the board. So basically, I think there's going to be a pulled-in tail is going to put more curve in the rails, so you're going to have a little bit more. It's going to turn a little bit more, but once you put that board on rail, I don't know that it's going to be as fast down the line, because you've got more curve in the rail. It's going to be more maneuverable, but it's not going to be as fast on rail. You're going to definitely have a little bit more curve that's coming into play in how the board planes. So the more you pull the tail in, the more curve you get into the back half from the wide point back to the tail. I think you can put more curve into that versus being straight. I mean, you could still kind of like go to the wide point and go a straight hard line back to there, which you could still get a straight line on a narrower tail, but it gives you the opportunity to get more curve in the back part of the rail. So I think it'll probably make the board a little bit more maneuverable. But yeah, but you also lose volume too. The more you pull in the tail, and we all sit back on our tails in certain situations, and you need float back there, and you need buoyancy in the back half of the board. So pulling in the tail too much, you're going to be losing some volume out of the back half of the board, and you don't want to be sinking when you want to sit back on the tail. I think you want to be having some buoyancy back there. It's kind of like the thinking with Cyril's board is that we're going to try to beef up the back half of the board, so it even sit back on the tail, you even have more buoyancy. Kind of excited to be tested and seeing how I can do this. So yeah, I like a good challenge. And so who else is? Like I said, I'm 8 minutes past my mark, but like I said, if the questions keep coming, I can stick around for a little bit longer. Still got half a beer left. Hope that answered your question, Rio. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to play around with dimensions and shapes and stuff, and then that obviously it affects how the board rides. So cool, man. I do my best. I don't know everything, but I know a couple things. Anybody else got any questions? Hit me up. Hey Rio, I'm thinking about maybe Maui for my birthday in January too. I'm gonna maybe go to Oahu in December and Maui in January. It's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. So might be talking to you about that soon. Who knows? I've definitely already talked to Jordan on Oahu about kind of maybe staying at his place in this winter. So that's going to happen for sure. I'm definitely going North Shore this winter, and then I'd love to get to maybe Maui for my birthday. I was on Oahu last year for my birthday, so I think I'd maybe want to do Maui this year for my birthday if possible. So kind of when I'm kicking it around. And dang it, I want to get Maui in the wintertime when there's some good swell. You know, I think I've been to Maui a couple times, but I don't really think I've gotten super good swell there yet. And I mean, I don't need anything too big. I'm an old fart that, you know, 8-foot faces are plenty for me, man. If it gets any bigger than that, I don't know. It's a little outside my comfort zone. You know, around here, if I really like, you know, a good 4 to 6 foot day, you know, head high, a couple feet overhead's plenty for me, man. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to, you know, I got Hokipa last year pretty good. It was head high or so on the first day, so that was pretty fun. But man, my last trip to Oahu, I actually scored with Jordan. I got to score so many waves that trip where that I'd never ridden. I got to go surf Rocky Point. I got to surf V-Land and Mokalia, Makaha, which was amazing. That day was pumping at Makaha. I couldn't believe it. Makaha was so fun. Oh, 45 in January. Maybe we'll have a double birthday party or something. That'd be fun, huh? Yeah, my birthday is the 28th in January. So, but yeah, Makaha. I don't know if anybody out there has been to Makaha. That's such a fun wave. Holy cow. Backwashy bliss, man. The backwash that day was just something like I'd never really experienced before. So much fun. The uncles on the outside were just crushing it on the longboards too, man. They were just taking off on these almost double overhead bombs out the back and riding them all the way through. I was just like, okay, here it comes. Get out of the way of the uncle coming through on the longboard. I was just kind of about halfway down the point there at Makaha, just picking up the scraps, and that was plenty for me. Well, yeah, I only expect to get scraps when I go to Hawaii. I learned real quick, don't ever even look at a wave if somebody's going on it. Just let them have it and look for something else. It goes a long way being courteous in the water in Hawaii. If you keep a smile on your face, you know, everybody's always worried about the localism and stuff, but I think as long as you're respectful and you keep a smile on your face and you don't drop in on anybody and you don't ever paddle for a wave that somebody's serious about going on, you'll be just fine in the water in Hawaii. Just keep a smile on your face and don't drop in on anybody. I think obviously there's probably still spots you probably don't want to paddle out unless you're with, I went with Jordan to a bunch of places when I was on Oahu, and Rio took me to a couple spots on Maui, but it always helps to be with a local person when you're paddling out to spots too. It really does go a long way. Oh yeah, the big brothers on the bully boards at Makaha. I know that there was a few bodyboarders out there that day. It wasn't all just longboarder guys. There's everybody on every craft. That's what's really cool about Hawaii is there's no discrimination on what the boards you're riding there. Like here in California, there's a lot of discrimination about what you ride instead of how you ride, and I think how you ride is way more important than what you ride. And how respectful you are to others in the water. It doesn't matter what you ride. It's how you conduct yourself in the water is what's really important to me, at least to me, and the experiences I've had. I still get called a sponger all the time and hated on around some of the spots even here, but it's fine. I just brush it off. It's no big deal. All right. It's getting close to 7:15. So any other questions out there, hit me up. Otherwise, it's about dinner time for me. It's been a pretty good flow of people today and a pretty good flow of questions. I want to really thank everybody for showing up and throwing their 2 cents in and asking questions. I'm really enjoying doing this. So I'm going to keep on doing it, and I already have some topics I'm thinking about for next week, and So yeah, I don't think there's ever going to be a lack of things to talk about in this stuff. So I'm really happy to do this and spread some knowledge and get together and answer people's questions. It's been a lot of fun, and I can see it being a lot of fun in the future still. So yeah, I'm going to keep on doing it for as long as I can, you know, and I don't see stopping doing this for a while. It's a lot of fun. Looney's asking, do people DK sand spit? I've never seen any footage. So are you talking about the sand spit that's here in our area, like on the south end of the bay, Looney? Because that's like Montana de Oro. It's the little state park. Yeah. Yeah, you know, I know a couple tubes DK riders that ride the reef out there, and yeah. There's people that sponge all over Montana de Oro. So I've been out at the reef quite a bit, so I'm very comfortable out there. I love the left. I mean, all the short borders go right, and it's the barreling section, but the left for me is, you know, if you can give me a 150 yard left that has multiple sections, and you know, I've turned off that left sometimes almost back at the sand and been like, holy cow, how far do I got to paddle to get back out? Yeah, I love sand spit out there. There's sand spit just in general is a great wave too. There's a regular sand spit parking lot. You know, it gets deep water real quick out there. It's the only thing around here that even gets close to Hawaii, where it just gets, there's a lot of energy out there at the Montana de Oro sand spit. It's a lot of fun. It's just a 5 mile long beach break, but it gets deep water real quick. So there's just a little bit more energy out there than say the beach break that's out in front of my house here. Yeah, there's all kinds of there's guys ride the reef on DK for sure, or sand spit. Yeah, don't be afraid to paddle out anywhere. It doesn't matter what you ride. Just be respectful of the people around you and keep a smile on your face, and I think you'll be all right. Well, appreciate everybody for showing up. I think it's about dinner time for me. Thanks everybody for showing up in the questions, and I guess we'll see you next week. Appreciate everybody for showing up and then all the questions. So I'm gonna sign off, and good seeing everybody. Yeah, glad you made it in this week, Rio. I know it's a little bit early for the Hawaii guys, just because 6 o'clock still like 3 o'clock in the afternoon there, but who knows? I mean, if I get people wanting to shift times or days around so they can make it, if it was like a Saturday night versus the Friday night thing, if I'm available on a Saturday, I might switch it up to maybe doing a Saturday instead of a Friday night. Maybe more people can make it in because it's not a work day for people. So just hit me up in the comments or shoot me messages if you got things that we can improve this. I mean, hey, I'm just sitting here doing this on my laptop. I thought about, I might be able to improve the quality of what I'm doing here. But for now, it's working out fine. And I'm enjoying it, and I'll keep on doing them. So, well, thanks for now. And I think I'm going to sign off. I appreciate everybody showing up. And I guess I'll see everybody next week. Ciao for now.